Did you know that nearly 78% of working people live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of how much they earn? It's not always about how much you make, it's about how you think about money. Hello and welcome, dear listener, to this life-changing audiobook summary of one of the most powerful personal finance books ever written, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. This is more than just a book summary. This is a mindset shift, because the ideas in Rich Dad, Poor Dad don't just inform, they transform. Let me introduce you to the man behind it. Robert T. Kiyosaki is an entrepreneur, investor, and educator who grew up in Hawaii with two very different father figures. One was his biological father, highly educated but financially struggling, his poor dad. The other was his best friend's father, a man with little formal education but immense financial wisdom, his rich dad. Through their contrasting views, Robert learned that wealth isn't about luck or intelligence. It's about how you think, what you learn, and most importantly, what you do with what you learn. This book has sold over 40 million copies worldwide, and it's often referred to as the book that launched a global movement of financial awakening. From college students and corporate employees to self-made millionaires, people everywhere say the same thing. I wish I had read this book sooner. So whether you're just starting out or looking for a fresh perspective on wealth, this summary will walk you through the core ideas, real stories, and life-changing principles that can help you break free from the rat race and finally start building the life you dream of. Ready to change the way you think about money forever? Let's begin. Robert Kiyosaki grew up in Hawaii in the 1950s, raised between two powerful yet opposite influences. His real father, the educated one, a schoolteacher with a PhD respected in society. This was his poor dad. And his best friend's father, a man who dropped out of school early, owned businesses, and became one of the richest men in Hawaii. This was his rich dad. Both were intelligent. Both worked hard. But one died broke. The other died wealthy and left behind a financial legacy. Their beliefs, their language, and their actions shaped the young Robert's entire understanding of life and money. Let's hear their philosophies. Poor dad said, "Go to school, get good grades, find a secure job, and work hard for a paycheck." Rich dad said, "Don't work for money. Learn how money works, then make it work for you." From a young age, Robert was torn between these two voices, both full of love, both well-meaning, but completely contradictory. And what he discovered changed his life. At age 9, Robert and his best friend Mike were already thinking about money. They didn't come from wealthy families, but they noticed that the kids with more money seemed to have more power. They wanted in. So they did what any ambitious kids would do. They tried to make money. Literally. They took old toothpaste tubes made of lead and began melting them down to try and cast counterfeit nickels. Of course, the plan didn't work, and they got into trouble. But instead of giving up, Robert asked his poor dad how to get rich. His father, despite his education, didn't have an answer. He replied, "Go to school, study hard, and get a job." Robert wasn't satisfied. So he turned to his best friend's dad, the rich dad. Rich dad agreed to teach Robert and Mike, but on one condition. They had to work for him without pay. At first, Robert was upset. No pay? That felt unfair. But rich dad smiled and said, "That's how life teaches you. Most people quit when they feel pain. But if you learn from discomfort, you'll grow beyond it." And so, Robert and Mike worked every Saturday at one of Rich Dad's convenience stores, dusting shelves, cleaning floors, stacking canned goods. For weeks, they earned nothing. Frustrated, Robert finally complained. Rich Dad used this moment to teach the first critical lesson. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. He explained that most people get stuck in what he called the rat race. Working for a paycheck, spending that paycheck, getting into debt, then working harder to pay off that debt. And the cycle never ends. Rich Dad said something that shocked Robert. If you learn to work only for money, you become a slave to it. People get addicted to the security of a paycheck. They fear losing their jobs. They don't take risks. They stop thinking creatively. But those who understand how money works, they don't chase it. They create it. Robert realized he had never been taught how money really works. Not in school, not by his teachers, and not even by his educated father. Schools teach you how to be an employee, not how to build wealth. And that's where Rich Dad stepped in. Rich Dad didn't teach through lectures or textbooks. He taught through experience, questions, and observation. He exposed Robert to his businesses, real estate investments, meetings, contracts, failures, and successes. He gave Robert a front row seat to how the wealthy think. And he drilled in one powerful idea. The poor focus on income. The rich focus on assets. Robert asked, "What's the difference?" Let's break it down. This is the cornerstone of the book. If you get this, your financial life will never be the same. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. It's that simple. And yet, most people think they're building wealth when they're actually building debt. They buy a big house, thinking it's an asset, but it's draining them every month. They lease new cars, take loans for luxury items, and call it success. Rich Dad taught Robert, if you want to be rich, spend your life buying assets. That's the only way out of the rat race. So what are examples of real assets? Rental properties, stocks that pay dividends, businesses that don't need you to work daily, intellectual property, books, music, patents, royalties and digital products. Everything else? Nice to have, maybe, but not an asset. Rich Dad believed that wealth isn't just about having money. It's about developing the mindset to create it. He said, opportunities are everywhere, but only the trained mind can see them. Where most people saw problems, Rich Dad saw possibilities. A falling market? He saw discounted assets. An empty lot? He imagined rental income. A complaint from a customer? He saw a new business idea. Robert realized that the rich weren't luckier. They were better trained to recognize patterns, solve problems, and act quickly. Robert once asked, "What if I don't have any money to start?" Rich Dad smiled. Then you're in the best place to learn. Because when you have no money, you have to use your brain, not your wallet. The wealthy often build empires using other people's money, OPM. Through investors, partners, or smart borrowing. They reduce their own risk while multiplying their rewards. Rich Dad explained, wealth is not built by working harder. It's built by working smarter and understanding leverage. This one idea stayed with Robert forever. Poor Dad, despite his good intentions, lived with constant financial stress. He had a solid job, a good title, but very little control. Every time his income rose, so did his expenses. New house, new car, higher bills. He believed in job security, but when economic shifts happened, he was vulnerable. Rich Dad taught Robert that true security doesn't come from a job. It comes from building something you control. Don't climb someone else's ladder. Learn how to build your own. Robert noticed that in all his years of schooling, he had never been taught how to file taxes, how to invest, how to buy property, how to analyze a business, how to build passive income. He was trained to memorize, not to multiply. Rich Dad warned that this was no accident. The system is designed to create employees, not entrepreneurs. If you want to be rich, you'll need to re-educate yourself. And so Robert did. Robert began taking small steps, reading books on investing, attending seminars, studying real estate deals, learning from failures, asking mentors hard questions. He didn't get rich overnight, but slowly he started building a different life, one where money worked for him. As Robert reflected on the wisdom of his two dads, he saw clearly. One followed the path of comfort, education, and job dependence, and struggled financially. The other chose courage, financial intelligence, and entrepreneurship, and created lasting wealth. Both were good men. Both loved him. But only one taught him the game of money. By the time Robert reached adulthood, he had learned how money flows, what assets really are, and how the rich think differently. But there was still one major obstacle between him and success: himself. One day Rich Dad said, "The greatest challenges to wealth aren't taxes or the economy. They are fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance." These were the 5 silent killers of financial freedom, and most people don't even realize they're being controlled by them. Let's explore each one. 1. Fear, especially the fear of losing money. Everyone is afraid of losing. It's human nature. Poor Dad used to say, "Don't take risks. What if it doesn't work?" But Rich Dad said something different. Learn how to take smart risks. Losing is part of winning. Robert met many wealthy individuals who had lost money in businesses, stocks, property. But they didn't let fear stop them. Instead, they saw loss as a teacher. You only lose if you quit. 2. Cynicism, listening to the wrong voices. How many times have you had an idea, and someone said, "That'll never work"? Cynicism is everywhere, in the media, in conversations, sometimes even in our families. Rich Dad taught Robert a powerful filter. Before taking advice, ask, has this person done what I want to do? If not, don't listen. Poor Dad was surrounded by cautious thinkers. Their doubts became his reality. But Rich Dad believed, doubt is cheap. Experience is priceless. 3. Laziness, disguised as busyness. This surprised Robert. He thought lazy people sat around doing nothing. But Rich Dad explained that busyness without progress is just another form of laziness. People say, I'm too busy to read about investing. I'll figure out my money later. This month is hectic. I'll start next year. But later becomes never. Laziness isn't about doing nothing. It's about avoiding the important by being stuck in the urgent. For bad habits, especially paying others first, most people earn and then spend rent, utilities, credit cards, groceries, and by the end of the month, there's nothing left to invest. Rich Dad taught Robert, always pay yourself first, even if it's just a little. This means, before you pay bills, set aside something for investing. This habit teaches your subconscious, I matter. My future matters. 5. Arrogance, thinking you know it all. This was perhaps the most dangerous. Poor Dad, despite his education, never studied money. He believed his job title protected him. It didn't. Rich Dad, though wealthy, always stayed humble, reading, learning, listening. The moment you think you know it all is the moment you stop growing. Humility, Rich Dad said, keeps you open, and openness keeps you rich. One day Robert, now armed with years of lessons, asked Rich Dad the big question. I understand all this, but where do I begin? Rich Dad replied, start small, start smart, but most importantly, start now. You don't need money to begin. You need a decision. Here's the roadmap Rich Dad gave him, steps that anyone, anywhere, at any age can follow. Step 1. Learn the language of money. No, not becoming an accountant or economist, just financial literacy. Learn how to read a balance sheet. Understand assets versus liabilities. Know basic terms like ROI, cash flow, equity, depreciation. Most people fear money because they don't understand it. Rich Dad said, you can't build wealth if you're financially blind. Step 2. Build your asset column. Even if you earn little, start building assets. Buy a single share of a dividend-paying stock. Create a digital product, an ebook, course, design. Rent out a room or parking space. Start a side hustle, solving simple problems. The key isn't the size, it's the habit. Poor people build income. Rich people build assets. Robert began with small real estate deals others ignored. They didn't make him rich instantly, but they gave him momentum. And momentum builds confidence. Step 3. Track your cash flow. Most people say, I'm broke, but they don't know why. Rich Dad made Robert track every dollar. Where it came from, where it went, what it produced. This creates awareness, and awareness creates control. What you track, you can improve. Step 4. Pay yourself first. Before you pay bills, pay yourself. Even if it's just 500 Indian rupees a month, save or invest that first. This trains your mind to treat your future as a priority. Over time, this discipline builds your financial muscle. Freedom is built with small, consistent choices. Step 5. Invest in self-education. The best investment? Not stocks, not real estate. It's your mind. Buy books, attend seminars, join masterminds, watch financial videos, take courses. The more you learn, the more you earn. Poor Dad said, I can't afford it. Rich Dad taught Robert to ask, how can I afford it? That single shift moved him from powerlessness to power. Step 6. Surround yourself with growth-minded people. This changed Robert's life dramatically. When I spent time with poor thinkers, I thought poor. When I spent time with rich thinkers, I started thinking rich. Environment is everything. Find people who talk about building, not blaming. Think in solutions, not excuses. Ask questions, not complain about problems. You rise with the people around you. Step 7. Take imperfect action. Rich Dad reminded Robert often, you'll never feel ready. Do it anyway. Waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. Robert's first property wasn't flashy, but it taught him more than any textbook. Because action creates clarity. Start small. Start messy. But start. Building wealth isn't quick, but it is possible if you stay consistent. You don't need money to start. You need curiosity, courage, and commitment. Day by day, your skills grow. Your assets multiply, and your freedom takes shape. As Robert looked back on the lives of his two dads, he realized his poor dad followed society's script. Go to school, get a job, work hard, stay out of debt, retire with a pension. His rich dad followed a different path. Learn how money works, build assets, take smart risks, let systems and investments do the work. Both men were intelligent. Both loved him. But only one left behind wealth. Robert had to make a choice. Not out of rebellion, but out of realization. If you follow what everyone else does, you'll get what everyone else gets. So he took the road less traveled. And that has made all the difference. If you're still listening, chances are you're ready for change. You're done being financially stuck. You want to grow. And you're willing to begin. So here's your action list. Start reading about money today. Buy or build one small asset this month. Join a growth-minded group this week. Pay yourself first every time you earn. Track every rupee for the next 30 days. Learn a new skill every quarter. Ask better questions like, how can I afford this? How can I build it? What can I learn from this? And most importantly, never say again, I can't do it. Say instead, I'm learning how. Because wealth isn't just in your bank. It's in your belief. Rich Dad Poor Dad is not a book about finance. It's a book about freedom. It's not about getting rich fast. It's about growing smart, brave, and aware. And now that you know what Robert learned, now that you've heard the truth schools and society won't teach you, what will you do? Will you go back to waiting for the perfect moment? Or will you take the first step? You don't need millions to begin. You need a decision. This is your blueprint. This is your wake-up call. This is your starting line. If this message moved you, inspired you, or made you see money differently, subscribe to this channel. Like and share this audiobook. Drop a comment. Tell us your biggest takeaway. And stay tuned for more empowering book summaries. Because the journey to financial freedom isn't about speed. It's about clarity, courage, and showing up every single day. Your Rich Dad moment starts now. Thank you.